Welcome to The Bone, the podcast that goes deeper. Here we cut through the noise and get straight to the core of the issues that matter. From real stories to raw truths, we dive deep into the conversations that shape our world and challenge our thinking. We're not afraid to dig in and get to the marrow of it all. Whether it's life, culture, or business in sports medicine, we're here to break it down raw and real. No filters, no fluff, just to the bone. With your host, Shelby Daly, we're getting to the bone. This is a clinically pressed, approved CEU podcast. Find the quiz to gain credit at clinicallypressed.org/courses. Clinically Pressed Company, making the complicated simple through results that give back. Find out more at clinicallypressed.org. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Bone. Today I have Aaron Ngor, an athletic trainer who's redefining what it means to work in the field. For traditional settings to unconventional spaces, Aaron brings a fresh perspective on adaptability, leadership, and the mindset it takes to succeed in a constantly evolving profession. We'll dive into his journey, how he found his path in athletic training, the lessons he's learned on and off the field, and the challenges and opportunities that come with carving out your own lane. This will be a conversation about growth, purpose, and the pushing the limits of what an athletic trainer can be. Welcome to the show.
Amazing, and thank you for that intro, Shelby.
Yeah. Well, so we've never met, but I think that we've been in the same circles, since I was in California for my master's. You're in California still. I think we know a lot of the same people.
I'm pretty sure we
track of each other. But this is actually really our first time speaking face to face. So yeah. I'm excited.
Also excited to sit down and have a conversation with you. And I find a lot of great value in folks that want to build community within athletic training. And I think, some stuff we were talking before we started on the show, it was just like, just sharing what everyone is up to, especially those who are trying to redefine and modernize athletic training in our own ways.
Yeah. For listeners who don't know you yet, tell us a bit about your background, where you started, and how you found your way into these non-traditional athletic training roles.
Yeah, I think first off, I never thought I was going to be an athletic trainer. I guess when you're in high school, you're always just trying to figure out where you're going to go. Athletics is cool. I grew up dancing a lot, so the performing arts was a part of my history. And I wanted to be a backup dancer when I grew up. And unfortunately and fortunately, injuries happen when you are trying to train and compete, stay healthy. And that's when I actually had my first interaction within the healthcare system of starting to work with doctors, nurses, PTs, and my high school athletic trainer. But early on, I started to notice the discrepancies between the type of care and resource access that traditional sport athletes got versus those who are not in that traditional bucket. So we're talking like cheer, dance, and many more that I came to learn as I started working through the profession. But personally for me, I had always wanted to bridge those two worlds together of performing arts and athletic training. So you can say it was like part of who I was, and the lens that I brought to the table, even learning in athletic training classes. However, I took that as a chance and opportunity for me to like upskill and learn what other sports and other disciplines were doing to get their teams, their athletes back, and how can we take those learnings and adapt them to the performing arts setting, especially in dance. So I made that my like life mission over the past decade of being in the field, which took me from Chapman's athletic training program to being one of the first students to create a formal clinical internship experience with a very well-known resort in Anaheim, California, to going getting my graduate degree, post-professional master's at Ohio University in Athens, Ohio, with another esteemed collegiate researcher in the performing arts, dance, medicine space with Dr. Jeffrey Russell there. And then taking all that experience, bring it back home to California to start my first business, Offset Med, where we provided sports medicine outreach services to the hip hop dance community. And that kind of was what opened the door to a lot of very interesting conversations, networking opportunities, and parlayed into a lot of the cool stuff that I'm doing now.
Yeah. Well, did I just see that you're going to be with the Olympic breakdancing team
Yeah,
for
so
26?
so the youth Olympic breaking team is still going on for 2026. However, I'm, to my knowledge, not a part of that. I
Okay.
was a part of the 2024 Paris debut with
Okay.
the Olympic breaking team. So that happened, yeah, last year. And I was able to support the team during their final Olympic qualifiers in Budapest, as well as the Paris Games.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, breakdancing has been around for a while, really.
Yes.
You know, I think 70s is when it really started.
Yep.
But can you talk a little bit about the evolution of that sport, since it still seems very new to kind of the public, or I guess the athletic space? What is some, I guess, are there any associations? Are there any groups, like professional groups? How did you, as a medical provider, really insert yourself into that space?
Sure. There's been an evolution in terms of the, I guess, consciousness of what it means to be an athlete that's really taken more of a mainstream adoption within the past few years, especially within the breaking scene. When you look at why breaking was created, and break dancing is also a term that was coined in like the 90s, that a lot of people who are like part of that early like hip hop and 2000 era remember. If you talk to dancers who are actually participating in the art and the sport, they call it breaking. So that art form, predominantly started in the early 70s in New York in the Bronx. And it was a way for, I guess, it was a way for the community to find peace and a nonviolent way of protest of um, all the pain, trauma, and atrocities that were happening in New York City at the time, whether it was through gang violence, political inequality, um, and just like the impoverished socioeconomic status of what was going on between the Black and Latino communities. So this was a lifestyle. It was a way for youth not to be involved with gang related behavior, and offered a cathartic and expressive artistic experience that matched the wave of this like new sound and this new energy that was being born that we know today as like hip hop, or has changed into this modern day hip hop. It definitely has been through its own evolution. You talk to some people, they say the hip hop we know today is not the hip hop of back then. So, and like all these changes, it goes through its own evolution. So, you talk to people back then, the OGs, as we call it, and they weren't really thinking about the longevity of their health and their performance abilities. They were just trying to get to the next day, book their next gig, find their next paycheck. And it was really trying to discover what it meant to become a dancer, but then actually like, how do you actually make money as a dancer? How do you turn that money and turn it into a business as a dancer so you can self-sustain yourself and not be reliant on like booking gigs with an artist or a company where it's very like seasonal based. So that community was finding and is still finding stability within itself as part of the entertainment industry. And I think within the past few years, I was very fortunate enough to have grown up in Southern California, where we do have a large population of dancers, especially in LA, where it is like the pipeline that you see dancers go to auditions and they're able to book opportunities for themselves to tour with major artists, or open up their own studios and teach classes and participate in this like global competitive dance circuit that we see. So there is money in it, and I think as dance and entertainment became more accessible as a profession, as
Mhm.
a real profession where artists can now negotiate on the table and ask for higher pay and wellness benefits and things like that, the younger generations get to benefit from that and are begin asking questions and seeking help, especially when they want to keep dancing beyond their like young teens and early 20s. Like, what does that look like later on?
Mhm.
And so I think that tied in with this like trend of no longer wanting reactive medicine, want to be proactive with health, really places athletic trainers as a resource for this population that is like looking for something different, and that can be specialized to their needs, because we know the demands, the structures that athletics places, whether it's high school athletics and that pipeline all the way to professional. We don't have that as much and at the scale as traditional athletics does in the performing arts world. And if
Mhm.
so, it's very like fragmented, because every dance style has their own different pathways and their own um, different types of infrastructure involved. Like, you look at ballet, and there is a very clear pipeline between youth to the professional stage, whether it's through the American Ballet Theater into booking with more professional dance companies, domestically and internationally. But with breaking, there are places where the culture, the dance form has been able to stay alive and thrive. And, in places that it's not doing as well because there's not enough funding for the arts, and there's not enough viewership, or people just are unaware that they can participate in this, access and understanding like how does it work if like my kid wants to be the next youth Olympian, what does that pathway look like, and where are the teachers at, and where are the resources at, medical, like how do I have someone who can understand how to take my kid from point A to point B, and not just being tossed aside and be like, oh, you're just another dancer.
Yeah. So, is there a definition of what breaking is? I mean, you mentioned ballet, and I think we all have a pretty good handle on that. There's like salsa dancing or ballroom. I think a lot of people have a good idea of that. I mean, when I think of breaking, I think of the cardboard box on the side of the street,
Yeah.
or, like Step Up the movies where, it's a lot of dance fighting. Is there a good definition for breaking?
I don't know if I'm the right person to answer that question, but I will say to your point about the cardboard box being there. So Victor Montalvo, he was part of the roster of the USA Breakers that got to represent in Paris. I think he was asked a similar question on like a panel, and his response is, I'm just going to take it from him, was something along the lines of like, that old image of like cardboard box breaking is yes, like that's the origin, but that was almost 50 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, like compared to the other dance styles like ballet, it is a newer, younger art form that's evolved. But every year there are, you know, kids and athletes that are pushing the boundaries of that art form and creating something new. And I think that's pretty extraordinary when you see something that's so structured already that you don't expect it to change. You see it very consistently. But breaking takes elements from different inspirations, whether that's from like kung fu movies, whether that's from like other dance styles, whether that's just from, things that they see in the modern world and robotics or whatever, and they can take these inspirations and put it in there is a traditional canon of movements that is breaking, right? Whether it's a 6-step, a top rock, power moves, like there's a structure to it, but it can be influenced and changed and given a lot of variety based on the individual, which is why it's like so cool. And everyone has their own, can basically create their own flavor and personality and aura with the dance style.
Yeah.
So I don't have a real definition for you, but I hope that helps answer the question a little better.
Yeah, no, I mean, but I think that's a great explanation. Ultimately, I think you see ballet, ballroom, salsa, whatever. It's very structured and very precise, I think, is my interpretation, where breaking seems very fluid, dynamic, unconventional ultimately. And I think that's where, wrapping your head around it as a competition, ballet, I don't know if there's really a competition, but ballroom, salsa, they have those competitions. It's trying to wrap my mind around, there's like two paths for breaking. There's the competitions now, but then, entertainment wise, there's music videos, there's films, there's those types of avenues. So it's, I guess, how do you determine someone's really good at breaking or not?
You work hard. You train hard. You take care of everyone else. But when was the last time you treated yourself? That's where Soar Soap comes in. Created by athletes for athletes, Soar Soap is an all-natural recovery soap that helps wash away soreness, inflammation, and fatigue. With ingredients like peppermint, eucalyptus, and activated charcoal, it's basically self-care disguised as a shower. Whether it's after a long training session, a tournament weekend, or just a tough day, Soar Soap helps you reset, recover, and smell amazing. Because taking care of your body shouldn't stop when you leave the gym. So go ahead, treat yourself. Head to soursoap.com and use the code
TTB15. That's TTB15 for 15% off your order. Because recovery starts with you.
Hey friends, quick break to talk about something that's changing the game in sports medicine. Red light therapy. We're talking real science and results. There are over 4,000 research papers showing how light can help with inflammation, pain, tissue healing, swelling, and musculoskeletal conditions. The team at Fringe took that research and created red light therapy tools designed by rehab experts and sports medicine professionals, built to deliver light directly to the tissues that need it most, promoting healing from the inside out. And get this, no wires, no EMF, no flicker, and absolutely no bad vibes. Whether you're running a clinic, working in an athletic training room, or recovering at home, these tools are a game changer for performance and recovery. Check them out at fringeheals.com and get 10% off with the code TOTHEBONE10. That's to the bone 10 for 10% off.
If you watch enough, you will be able to tell.
Yeah.
And it's just like watching any other sport. Like, some people, maybe they'll only be able to tell that, oh, this person is an amateur playing basketball. They play like, at their recreation center down the block, versus they watch someone move and they're like, oh, this person is like NBA status and it's just a monster. But I think that's because, that difference is like so wide. But then you also have people who can also be like, oh, this future college pick at this NCAA school has the technique and pattern that's so good that I think they could advance to the NBA, and maybe they have the eye that's like a scout. And I don't
Mhm.
think that, um, nor should we expect regular folks to have that type of precision, but just the exposure, by pure exposure and like going to these events and learning how people move and understanding the history of the breakers that came before this current generation, and knowing how the current generation is moving now compared to then, you'll clearly see those who are at competitive national level, Olympic level status, and you'll see those who are just like, I'm just starting out in this dance form, or I know a little bit, but it's like not enough. I think what doesn't get shared a lot about, uh, is there is the artistic piece and there is the technical aspect piece. So, for example, if we're talking about the technical aspect piece, for the Olympic Games and the qualification series, when the breakers were being judged, they would be penalized if they repeated a certain move.
Hmm.
Now, imagine that, like in any other sport, whether it's a layup, whether it's a catch, a throw, they have to find a different way to do it in every single round. Otherwise, you'll
Yeah.
get docked. And
Hmm.
that's like the bandwidth and the creativity of like the breadth of how someone, if they are strong of mind and body and willing, and their brain is also able to go the distance, like they can, they have a lot of material versus someone who is like, maybe have just learned the techniques. Like if you go ever take a dance class, you'll watch the instructor, and people usually look stiff when they first say, especially if they're not used to it. But it's because they're trying to copy the exact same structure, the exact same angle, because they don't feel confident about breaking from the mold.
Mhm.
So I think that's like the difference between being like, okay, the more time you spend in the sport, the more you're able to assess status and skill level, but also gain a wider appreciation for just the sheer like technical ability these athletes have.
Yeah, I think that goes into the definition of it, is it's a flow, doesn't repeat. I don't know. Well, how about we work? That will be our next project, is defining
Sure.
breaking. Well, you had brought up that this population, this sport, this group has really identified that longevity is a key factor for their careers or their hobby, whatever you want to call it. In traditional athletic training, I mean, I know you've done traditional stuff also, maybe not as heartily, but do you think that's kind of one of the missing pieces of traditional athletic training, is that our traditional patient population hasn't caught on to how we can actually implement into the longevity of their career, and that we're very reactive?
I've seen both ends of the spectrum.
Okay.
Like, for example, like I still work traditional athletics. I'll get contracts to support Team USA athletes, and be sent across the world with them.
Hmm.
I've worked with high school, college athletes still, and just seeing what they know and what they've picked up. It's the landscape is very different now than it was, 10 years ago when I first started, but some things are still the same. So, for example, I think there are some athletic trainers that, really are just trying to make sure that their athletes are able and available to compete
Hmm.
at any means necessary. And you could argue that, especially at the collegiate high school level, is that if we're able to take this athlete out from this level to the next, they may be able to, you know, create intergenerational wealth for them and their family through a contract with NIL, or maybe through a professional contract when they're done.
Hmm.
So is it worth the risk of like trying to prioritize short-term gains, and then they can figure out what to do longevity long-term wise when they actually have the money and resources and support and a following? Maybe. But I don't think you should throw everything out that way, because statistically we know that it's athletes will not always transition well to the next level. Not every athlete is going to secure a $6 million contract, is going to secure a roster spot at the professional level.
Yeah.
And so for those athletes, if you take that approach, you're actually like robbing them of their livelihood later, because we're not setting them up to be educated about their own bodies and health habits and practices. They're
Mhm.
not prepared to handle the real world consequences when they can't just walk into a medical clinic and ask for services and interventions. And they won't be able to discern or identify the practitioners that are going to offer interventions that's there to serve them, or they just want their money. And I think
Yeah.
that's a disservice to a lot of these athletes, which is why, again, athletic trainers, we try and do a lot for everyone. But I think individual athletes and patients, they want to have an answer. They want to know that they can trust this person, and they want to know that there's like a follow through with it. And so I commonly see like these patients and athletes go elsewhere other than athletic trainers to find answers and solutions. They'll go see
Mhm.
their physical therapist. They'll go see their chiropractor. They'll go see their massage therapist, their acupuncturist, because for whatever reason, they are able to build a better relationship and have a different type of conversation about their overall well-being that they're not having with athletic trainers, which I think is a problem, because then we miss another, contact point with them to be a trusted provider that they recognize.
I think that's a great point. Ultimately, I was going to say, I feel that athletic trainers are so backlogged on reaction. So, the injuries, the hiccups, whatever comes up, we're so concentrated on that we're not putting enough emphasis on, I don't like the word prevention. I haven't found a better word, but addressing the relationship with the athlete or patient, whatever we're calling it these days, in that how are we working proactively? And then to your point, we've set up this culture of multitaskers as athletic trainers. So are we really developing those personalized relationships? Like you said, most of the athletes just really do want that one-on-one time of direct attention so that they feel validated or listened to about what's going on. Somebody has a sense of understanding of what they're going through. I've identified this in other conversations too, and it's one of those things of, as the athletic trainer, I think we should have those relationships like you were identifying, that they're not feeling like they need to run out to somebody else to be heard. But at the same time, I think it's building that relationship of helping them direct themselves to the proper referral pathway, um, instead of just putting it up to the athlete or patient to go figure it out themselves. Because that's not really streamlining their care at the same time if they're going out and picking out their own team of professionals.
That's correct. And I think knowing who the person is will help too. Like, for example, in my practice now, there are vetted professionals that I will refer my clientele to, because I
Mm-hmm.
know what type of service and care they're going to get. And sometimes, even if they come to me first as a point of contact, I'm going to redirect them to somebody else if I feel like that specialist or that other person is much better at operating or working with that particular condition, or they just want a certain service done that is not within, maybe it's not something I do all day. I can provide that. But again, when you're working in more of like a concierge base and like one-on-one base service, they're looking for a high quality service. They're looking for time, and they're
Mm-hmm.
looking uh, to make sure that their money is well invested. So I think it's understanding from an internal level too, like as an athletic trainer, I've always been taught, and maybe you to a degree too, that you've heard the term like we're a Swiss Army knife of sorts, right? And it wasn't until like later as I started transitioning into more of the private practice realm that I started thinking like, well, what good is a Swiss Army knife if the knife is dull and the screw is loose and everything else is disorganized and I can't pull it out on time? So really, I believe, and I've reimagined it as that each tool in the Swiss Army knife needs attention. It needs to get sharpened. It needs to work well, especially when you need it. So over the years, like an athletic trainer should get really good at each one. And over the course of a career, become not just a generalist, but almost like when you look at it from afar, it looks like a generalist. But when you need it to work, they work like a specialist.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, totally. Well, that's where my resume is very long. I had great benefits at one of my previous employers, so I took advantage of it. And I wouldn't say that I'm specialized in all those things, but I have knowledge of them. So when my patient comes to me and asks me about a new technique, new application, a new idea, at least I can guide them to a better way than if I didn't know anything at all and kind of blew them off. And yes, athletic trainers are the jack of all trades, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing at all, but we have to be realistic of what all we can do. I don't think that we're meant to do everything. I think we're still the quarterbacks, the case managers, that we can be the point of contact, initial contact. We can do the best we can do with whatever specialization we have, but our real value is that we have the knowledge of where they specifically need to go next. And we can streamline that process, where in the public health system, I think that's where a lot of patients ultimately get frustrated. Is it's a ping pong match of, okay, I'm going to go to my general, I'm going to go to the specialist, oh, that specialist wasn't really the right person, I'm going to go to the other specialist, and you're just in this rat trap, and you don't get the answers that you actually need. And I think that's where athletic training hasn't honed in, is not that we have all the answers, but we are super great at navigating and making it more efficient than it needs to be.
Yeah, I would agree, especially in a industry that demands results fast, which is different than how the current healthcare system operates. Like I was just on a call with a new client of mine, and they were telling me that they weren't able to get a physical therapy appointment until I think the end of the month. And
we're in the 12th of November.
And we're in the 12th of November right now. And I'm talking the end of 30 days post. So we're talking like the middle of the month really for December.
Yeah.
And if you're talking about this person is losing time for being when they're able to return to work, return to their hobbies, whatever the case may be, what's a better way to use that time, right? And I think athletic trainers, we're used to working with someone almost like every day if they wanted to, and we're also objective based. We're also timeline bound sometimes. And in the outside world, for some folks, they may not have that timeline bound, which is like a free playground for athletic trainers. We're like, oh my gosh, we can actually have time to focus on all these things, and we can fill up the time with productive ways if we choose to. And the caseload is not insane. But the way high schools and collegiate programs are set up, especially when the athletic trainer to patient workload is mismatched, it's very hard to make just decisions, timely decisions, especially when you layer on multitasking, acute, traumatic, emergent cases on top of the maintenance cases of things that happen within the season. So I think the profession has done a great job in terms of like triage and like just making the ship go. But I don't think, while some will find great and immense value, like don't get me wrong, I love it when I see the NATA and other organizations share and post about the life-saving events that an athletic trainer is able to provide for a high school athlete, college athlete. Like that's very important.
Mm-hmm.
But that is not going to provide like the long-term value for athletes that move on with their lives.
Yeah.
And I think it's a very, we're serving very, the athletic trainer has the opportunity to serve in a different capacity depending on the setting. And I think at the end of the day, the AT has to make a decision on whether they feel like their values, their skill sets, and their career paths align with wherever they're at.
Yeah. Well, you brought up so many good points. Let's see if I can get them all. So the life-saving thing is so important, obviously. But at the same time, how many of those types of situations have happened and it still hasn't totally changed the athletic world of, yes, we need an athletic trainer. I don't know if that is the proper marketing strategy, even though it's amazing that we're saving these lives. But the stakeholder, this sounds so bad. It's really not that important to the stakeholder that are paying us, to be honest. I mean, it may depend on the setting that you're in. I think high school, there's a different level of skills and concentration of, I think it is more reactive care, making sure that, you know, the injury isn't super severe. There's obviously socioeconomic situations in high schools too. So it's just a different beast than like the collegiate setting ultimately. And you can comment on that if you want. Before I get into my next points.
I have a few comments.
Yes, go ahead.
A few comments. I think it will depend on how high profile something is. So you take a Division I program like University of Michigan football. You know, I know their head athletic trainer and their staff and their team behind it, their stakeholders that look at the optics of running a sports medicine, high performance medicine staff there.
Yeah.
And it's critical. They have to, because they don't want a bad PR incident.
Yeah.
Right? Versus the high school that gets no coverage and no one will know. Maybe a local newspaper might post about it. You know, yeah, their stakeholders may not be as so inclined unless they do have a very good heart and they're able to, you know, take the funds and find a way.
Yeah.
But that may not always be the case. Like we can't rely on charity to supply the salary for an athletic trainer there.
Yeah.
But I think, to your other point, I see right now, as we're currently speaking, physical therapists are enrolling in emergency response courses.
Yep.
And you may ask, why would they do that? Are they taking the job of an athletic trainer? And to be frank, in California, yeah, because we don't have enough athletic trainers being staffed.
Yep.
At every high school, at every club event, at every, you know, whatever. Like there's a lot of events going on.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, you have physical therapists that are traveling with teams to provide treatments and rehab. And the fact that they're able to now do taping and respond to an emergency actually strengthens there are reasons why they should be traveling.
Yep.
Because why wouldn't you know how to do first aid and save a life if you need to? Coaches have to learn how to save a life.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a skill set that athletic trainers own either.
No.
But are we the best? Are we the ones who've had the most hours and training for it in the sports setting? I would argue yes.
Yeah.
Because when the minutes count and the eyes are on, we're trained to handle that pressure and deliver at the highest possible level. But to your point, does that always translate into dollars? No. Because, sustaining life should be the bottom line for all medical providers.
Yep. And I mean, I'm not downplaying our skills. It's very, very important, especially like you said, at the D1 where there's the optics of it. You need it running exactly perfect, no errors, because that's what everybody picks up is the negatives. That's what they're waiting for is the mess up. I'm just thinking this summer we had multiple national events, at least in women's soccer, of, I don't know if it was classified as a heart attack, but somebody had a cardiac event at one of the women's professional soccer matches. And yeah, I think a lot of people talked about it for 2-3 weeks and then it kind of disappeared again. So, I mean, I think there are policies that have been backed by these events, but California still doesn't have an athletic trainer at every high school. I mean, I think that's what my point is. It's not like everybody's scared to death. Oh my God, we need to get this implemented right now because it could happen to us. And that's where I'm not sure if that marketing tactic from our national organizations is the best approach. Yes, it needs to be brought up, but I think there's much more to us, and I don't think those types of things are really being brought to the forefront on what differentiates us. Because even when you're talking about the performance aspects of what an athletic trainer can do, is that a strength and conditioning coach? Technically, that should be getting that prevention performance side to help elevate somebody's ability as they move on through their career. I don't know. It's been a question on LinkedIn that I keep seeing is what is our exact niche and where does it not cross over to anybody else? And I think it's the risk management and then the bridge from rehab to back to play ultimately. But those are such small slivers of what we do at the same time. So I don't know.
Yeah. And to your point, I think that this goes back to being like the generalist or the specialist conversation. Not every job or job opportunity, especially if you get paid to do something, will require an athletic trainer to literally pull out all of his, hers, they skill sets.
Yeah.
And I think depending on where you practice, the type of con ed you take, and how you want to operate, athletic trainers are already choosing or not choosing to advance their knowledge and skill sets in these areas. You do something for a while, you're bound to get good at it.
Yep.
I would hope so, at least. And so I only say this because the way I make sense of it in the private practice world, in my consulting practice, is that I'm here to solve problems, right? So if Joe walks into my clinic and says like, hey, I have been dealing with this chronic low back pain for a really long time. I used to play college sports, but fallen by the wayside, rolled my ankle trying to go from couch to 5K again. and I want to feel like my old self again, right? Now, if you're looking at purely from the athletic training side, at the most basic level, you'll say, "Oh, ankle sprain. I know how to do that and rehab that, get you back. I can tape you for support. Like I can, manage the way you can get back into the strength and training and weight room stuff." But if we peel back again, Joe is looking to change his life. He doesn't want to just fix the ankle. The ankle just happened as a snowball effect to where he's at in life.
Yeah.
And the fact that he has a former athletic background means that he's capable too and can tap into that part of himself. So on the strength conditioning side, you may see that, well, it's because you're weak and inefficient, you have poor movement patterns, so I can give you a program for that. I can coach you on that. Now, that's great. Now, if you're Joe and you're hearing I have an athletic trainer that can help with my injury, I have a strength coach that can get me back on a program and make me feel strong again. On the private practice side, you're asking this person to pay two different individuals now for their time, their energy. Maybe they may practice in different locations, which means you have to drive to the different locations. But if you have an athletic trainer that knows the strength conditioning side, or you have a strength conditioning coach that understands ankle injuries, has done it, lived it by experience, then they end up being this one person that has a specialized knowledge that can actually get this person what they want. You're solving a problem for them. So this person is willing to see the value, be like, you can solve my problem. I like working with you and we're getting results. Take my money. Right?
Yeah.
That's all it is. And I think when it comes to athletic training, you can specialize in that route if your goal is just really patient care, clinical care, return to performance. But to your point, it could also be on the risk stratification and management side, the case coordination, and just connecting the dots for people. And maybe they're paying you as a consultant to be I have a group of 10 to 12 youth athletes. I don't know. I don't have any connections. We're just here visiting for the week for a tournament. Can I pay you to make these connections and send them where they need to go, or pay you to outsource an athletic trainer to provide care for this tournament? I don't know, whatever. If you're the consultant side, you're there to solve whatever problems that your business said that you could solve.
Now, more than ever, athletic trainers are becoming inundated with the growing volumes and sources of data surrounding clinical injury management. In fact, the purpose of data has changed. Whether it's pre-participation examinations, electronic medical records, concussion management, nutrition, or wearable devices, athletic trainers are constantly faced with new and complicated challenges interpreting data to drive patient care outcomes, reduce injury rates, and show practitioner value. To get ahead of this change, athletic training departments turn to Preventix, a data analytics solution provider. With over 25 years of athletic training and clinical data experience, Preventix empowers athletic training and sports medicine organizations with tools necessary to quantify the impact of care interventions on patient success and outcomes. As a trusted partner, Preventix works with you to build a strategy that addresses your specific pain points, integrating all your data sources, providing clean, reliable data, dashboards, and metrics that can be immediately accessed by stakeholders at the point of care. Don't let messy, siloed data continue to negatively impact your care delivery initiatives and practitioner value. Unlock the power of your clinical data today. Visit Preventix.com for more information. Preventix.com.
In sports medicine, we talk a lot about recovery, but not all recovery tools are created equal. Mark Pro isn't just another muscle stim unit. It's a recovery technology trusted by elite athletes, athletic trainers, and rehab professionals. Whether you're grinding through tournaments, back-to-back practices, or long clinic days, Mark Pro helps your muscles recover faster, perform better, and feel fresher tomorrow. By improving muscle activation and promoting natural circulation, Mark Pro clears out fatigue and accelerates your body's natural healing without soreness or downtime. Use Mark Pro to stay ahead of fatigue and keep performance consistent. Because in sports medicine, recovery is performance. Head to markpro.com and use the code TOTHEBONE for an exclusive listener discount. That's to the bone at markpro.com. Mark Pro, the best in recovery.
Yeah, and I think earlier I was going to say athletic trainers are very good at the continuum of health. Obviously, we all have our preference in patient, age, demographics, whatever, but even with that athlete, we're there when they're healthy, when there's maybe dysfunction, when there's an injury, the return portion, and then getting them back to their standard or past their standard, and even making them better at the same time. And then we're very good at the integration of health. Orthopedics is very much bone, muscle, tendon, whatever. We got some internal medicine. We have brain health. We have all these other things that we can see the interrelation of all these different aspects and how it's causing a dysfunction or a problem or pain, discomfort. So I think, like you said, you could be the consultant as the center person to figure out the rest of the stuff. And we also have the knowledge to try to address it at the same time. So we're very dynamic. I just don't know how to roll it all together and market it on what we actually do. And then even to your point about, what you have two people, which specialty are you going to go with? I'm not going to pay for both, obviously. But at the same time, is somebody going to pay for an athletic trainer that can encompass what those two people can do in one person and pay them adequately for those skills too? I think is one of the problems or questions also.
Yeah, I mean, depending on the person, they might be able to afford to pay two separate people. And
Yeah.
I think the bigger conversation that we're really struggling as a profession, like you said, I don't know how to explain to someone all the different things we do, right? And the perception that people have about athletic training is their perception. It's a reaction. It's a byproduct of how we're showing up, highlighting our skills. How do people find out about us? And it's like a summation of all that. So we don't really get to dictate what people believe or perceive us unless we take a concerted effort to market and change that, right? And I think when you switch lens from, because the athletic training model in sports medicine that was born out of high school, college, and to professional athletics is its own ecosystem. It's its own world. When you step out of that, you're now in the world of consumers and products, right? Like I don't know, J&J. They just don't sell tape. They sell soap and baby care products and medicine and equipment, right? But depending on who you talk to, they're known for a certain thing.
Yep.
And that's how most consumers work for, right? When you associate something like what is the best hamburger you've eaten. Where do you get that from? You have
Depends
a
which state
brand.
you're in. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, but you have like a circulating idea of like what comes to mind first. And I don't think we've had that quite yet with athletic training where it's like, you know, you're an athlete and you want to return to sport. Where are you gonna go to? Most people will say physical therapist
Yeah.
because there's a lot of physical therapists that work and showcase and highlight their work that show they take this person who went from surgery or injury back to doing what they love, right?
Yeah.
And whether it's for HIPAA reasons or whatever constraints at the school level that we really can't share that information, or maybe athletic trainers don't know how to present it in a way that like is appropriate. Regardless, I think that does affect what athletic trainers believe is possible and how to redefine their roles. And that's why we have content creators like yourself and others that have been on this podcast and have started their own Instagram pages and TikTok pages and blogs. We're in this period of redefining that landscape and showing the cool things about our profession that got many of us excited about it. I think the issue is like longevity for ourselves in our profession and our careers, right? Like I just saw a paper the other day about how the collegiate setting is losing a lot of athletic trainers. And so if we don't have that pipeline of athletic trainers getting their repetitions in and mentoring other students and gaining that experience, we're gonna struggle.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that's my capstone presentation is, creating the conversations to address why there's a great exit and how do we address this stuff to create better environments for you to work. That's the goal of this podcast and my media platforms ultimately is reconnecting the community and acknowledging the hard conversations so people don't feel like they're on an island and they can't fight it themselves, since we all seem to be struggling with kind of the same themes in our different settings.
Mm-hmm.
I do think these newer settings of athletic training, it's providing a better business structure ultimately. It's not going to hit on the classic athletic training culture of necessarily being available 24/7, being heavily relied on by the team. And I think those are stigmas that need to be broken at the end of the day, because in those traditional settings of the high school or college professional, it's socialized healthcare at that point. So you're trying to give so much as an individual to a full team of 20 or so, 20 plus people that have access to you at any moment in time. And it's great, but it's not a healthy relationship either. So it's trying to turn that upside down and figure out how do we better navigate that. Um, it's kind of the only patient demographics that we teach or work with in general that really do have unlimited access. I mean, I think in the industrial setting, there's still access, but they're really actually performing a job that they have to concentrate on. There are some performance aspects, but it's not as heavily relied on as an athletic team. So I think it's interesting when there's money involved. NIL obviously has thrown a curveball into the athletic training sphere since there's money on the line in that aspect now too. But when somebody's not playing for their paycheck, I don't know, there's just different characteristics of care ultimately, I feel. I don't know. I don't know if you can comment on it either, of working with your individual athletes and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the landscape definitely changes with NIL in the picture. I'm already seeing it on the pro side where the athlete is performing a job and they have the money to support them in any way that they need. So if you're being paid independently to provide concierge care for an athlete, then you are kind of at their beck and call because you're now employed by them.
Mm-hmm.
And those are kind of the boundaries that you have to figure out what works in that type of relationship. I think that type of conversation in terms of like access and what's fair, just, humane, whatever, I don't know, like what are the rules in this relationship and how does that change? It's almost as if it's like an unspoken culture at some programs, while others are recognizing that that needs to change and either making changes to staffing or holding spaces and time to have these conversations with their teams and their athletes about how to best leverage and utilize sports med staff. Some staffs or programs have gone, and done a completely different model, which is all through the medical model, where athlete trainers, like a doctor or a nurse or any other specialist, needs to be appointment based, and there's all these protocols and steps involved. So there are a variety of ways that I think organizations and programs are trying to solve this problem. And I think ultimately, as an athletic trainer, you have to understand where your value is and where can you best deliver your work,
Mm-hmm.
And I think for some people find it very, very fascinating, and that's like their dream and goal is to be like, the athletic trainer for their favorite athlete, whether it's like LeBron James or Aaron Rodgers, whatever. But you really do have to be exceptional and have a lot of experience and be not just on the med team side, but on like their side,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense. Because now
Yeah.
you're advocating for their own health, and it may be against what the team wants.
Yep.
Versus on the team side, where there are some rules and regulations that you do have to hold by, and you are accountable for other people. So, but you also get other benefits and perks like as staff, and there's a regular working hours, and you know what you're going to expect, and there's a seasonality to it. Athletes will come and go, but your job will still be your job. And I think as athletic trainers explore that, I think that's why we have all those conversations about what type of work setting do I want for myself, right? Do I want to be a salaried employee? Do I want to be an independent contractor? Do I want to start my own business? Do I want to work under an existing business? And like, and at what scale, like small clinic, small school, large Division I, resource heavy school, big staff, big resource, like I think there's a lot of variety. And my hope is that like as ATs go through each of their settings, they'll either find exactly where they need to be and be valued for their work and get paid what they're worth, or realize like this is not for them. And if there's no place where they can get that alignment, that they have the resources and ability and community to start something themselves and build that for themselves.
Yeah. Well, what a perfect segue into consulting. An hour
Amazing.
later.
An hour later, we finally made it.
So, with all the opportunities that you've had, they've brought up other opportunities too. So, I wanted to have you on to talk about some of the consulting experiences that you've had and maybe how you've made those connections. I know before we started this show, there's obviously a range of different consulting areas that you can do or different levels. So I just wanted to learn more from you on I think this is going to be an up and coming thing for athletic trainers due to all of our knowledge of what we've talked about in the last hour. It's just how you're going to market yourself and how you're going to get out there and do it.
Yeah. And, just I'm going to try and speed run this. But feel free to stop me where it feels appropriate. I think it came in phases. It wasn't like I had this grand vision of I want to be a consultant and I already have all my clientele and it's like a happy picture right off the bat. It really came from my experiences providing clinical care, whether it was in the athletic training room or even like with my own family and friends. I quickly learned that I was very, very interested and wanted to know more about manual therapy interventions and rehab interventions, more than I cared about the taping and the sideline coverage stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I focused a lot of my attention early on in school. And when I was building my repertoire and knowledge in graduate school to provide care for all these like artistic athletes, and I really identifying like what are they missing? What are they not getting with the current encounters with other medical professionals? And it came to the point where, they were seeing chiropractors, acupuncturists, massage therapists, and physical therapists for all their needs. So I actually, when I moved back to California, became an informal physical therapy aide for a place that was treating youth and elite pro sport athletes. I shadowed their PTs while I was working my my part-time athletic training job at a resort in Anaheim. And I just wanted reps. I wanted to learn what the best were doing that I had access to in my available network and that were willing to take a chance on me, no matter at what level, just being in the room, making those early connections. And I continued to do that, no matter where I ended up work-wise, to like get better with my knowledge of, corrective exercise programming, manual therapy skills. And that slowly turned into, hey, I can solve a problem really well that's not currently being solved, because not only do I have a very clear assessment and structured diagnosis and understanding of how injuries work and the timelines for it, I can actually provide an intervention that gets someone closer to where they need to be. And that's how it started.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, you start working for different healthcare systems and learn about organizational structures and what it really takes to streamline care, making phone calls, having relationships with folks, that you can accelerate the process instead of having someone just go through like a phone call. They talk with their insurance goes back, like how do you actually get someone immediate care and with people that they trust? And so as I started building my private practice and developing those relationships and networks, on top of providing like the outreach for all our hip hop dance medicine opportunities, I started to understand that, now there is a system that I can pitch and like show other organizations if they want to provide sideline, backstage sports medicine care for their artists and athletes. This is how we do it. And if they like it, great. If they don't like it, you can go with another company and see how that goes. So over time, like that's how we got, that's how we improved our product. And then we were one connection away. This person met with one of our PTs and was like, I'm really curious about what you guys are doing at these events. So that PT reached out to me. We talked. We're like, okay, let's put together something for this, company. And it ended up being a hit with this company because they're like, wow, like that was so easy to work with you guys. Let's have you back for the next one. And so now we're creating a recurring revenue stream through contracts because we solved a big problem for them, where it's like these dancers and artists want care. The solution I had before was that whoever was in charge of them or in charge of that tour, in charge of that event, if they had the time and bandwidth, they would have to like look up locally who's here, call them individually or send them emails and be like, do you know anyone that can do this? Do you know anyone that can do this? And then will they have the equipment? Do they have to rent? Like there's all these little things that we take care of. And now they have a vendor that knows exactly what they need, brings exactly what they expect. You know, their artists and athletes love it. And so they just have the budget to keep going again.
Cool.
So that's one way. And then, you know, you have that experience and then you kind of work with other folks that learn that, oh, this is what you do. They start understanding, oh, like this is like a specialty thing. Like this is pretty unique. And because you occupy that unique space, when someone talks about it, like, oh, I'm actually looking for someone that has experience doing this stuff, knows how to work with an orthopedic surgeon and talk with my personal trainer or whatever, you become top of mind for them. And so they'll reach out and be like, this is what I'm currently working with. Can you help? Right. And help can mean a lot of different ways. It could mean like me providing the actual intervention, or me like making a few phone calls to make sure this person gets connected with this person, so that they can skip this like waiting phase.
Yeah.
Or it's like getting information, collecting it from all the different people they're working with and being like, no, this is the path that we have to go on.
Yeah.
And this is, we'll plug in these people when we need to. And it could be the complete opposite. I have nobody in my network. Like, you're the only person. And I'm like, great, because I have enough knowledge in each of these skill sets. And if I don't, I can phone somebody and get the answer for you. So I think that's what it ultimately came down to.
That's cool. So you are kind of that central reference person to get what needs to be done ultimately.
Yeah. And again, that wasn't like my plan. It was getting really good at something first to where people started talking about it and then developing that trust.
Yeah. And building your network at the same time.
That's correct.
That's so cool. Well, I'm going to let you get back to your day. If somebody wanted to connect with you, how's the best way to do that?
I have Instagram at OFFSET . My first name, Aaron, offset.Aaron. And email would probably be the best. It would be my first name and last name, Aaron Ngor, at pm.me. Those are probably two best ways. I'm also active on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah.
But I had a great conversation. I felt like we talked a lot. We talked some
I know, it went very fast topics. To be honest. Yeah. Well, is there anything else you want to put in right before we sign off?
No, I think I just appreciate you carving out some time to have this conversation with me, and I hope it proves to be helpful for anyone who's listening.
Yeah, definitely. I think we went a roundabout way, but that's why I want to do the show, is to get to the layers of some of these topics and themes and stuff, because it's very complex in athletic training because we are so well-rounded and business isn't necessarily straightforward either. So it's how do we talk it out so people can actually understand how to do your job better or be able to do the business of it better. So I really do appreciate you coming on, and it's great to meet you, and let me know when you want to be on again. We'll talk about other world problems and what's the meaning of life next. So let me know.
Amazing. Thanks, Shelby.
So, thank you so much.
That's it for today's episode of To The Bone. I hope we've sparked some new thoughts, challenged your perspectives, or simply reminded you to dig a little deeper. Remember, life isn't just about what's on the surface. Sometimes you've got to cut deeper and get to the bone of what really matters. To the Bone podcast is a product of Daily LLC. It's hosted and produced by Shelby Daly, ATC, and Randy Daly. No clinical decision-making should be based solely on one source. While care is taken to ensure accuracy, factual errors can be present. For more on the show, visit www.tothebonepodcast.com. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Get involved in the conversation. You can find us at www.tothebonepodcast.com. Drop us topic suggestions or be a potential guest. We're all about connecting with you, our listeners. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and keep cutting deep.